can take some notes on. Hopefully we'll give you something tonight worth jotting some notes down. I hope that you go away with at least 2 or 3 things you didn't know. Specifically tonight, we're going to be talking about foliar feeding. And the key crops that I tell people we work with is corn, soybeans, wheat, and alfalfa. Those are the primary ones, and so that's mainly where we're going to focus our attention. We have formulas, recipes for virtually any crop you can think of. And a lot of our products here will apply to a lot of other crops, everything from garden crops to fruits and vegetables, you name it. But those 4, corn, soybeans, wheat, and alfalfa, are the primary things that we work with. We go by the name Yield Champions because about 50% of all the NCGA National Corn Yield winners every year are customers of ours at one level or another. Some of them use our entire system, some of them use different bits and pieces of it. So we've kind of become known as the company of champions. I've got a bunch of pictures up here, and I know from where you're sitting you might not be able to see them all, but I always ask people, what do these farmers all have in common? You've got a picture of Francis Childs over here who passed away in, I believe it was 2008, but still holds, believe it or not, he still holds the world record for dryland corn at 442.14 bushel per acre. The irrigated yields have gone way beyond that, but the dryland yield still stands. Kip Cullers, who's had the world record for soybeans for 3 times, I think his top was 160.6 bushel acre. Steve Albrecht, who passed away very suddenly not too long ago, and he was a perpetual winner every year at National Corn Yield Competition. Jerry Cox is next to him, and Jerry has got more wins at the National Yield Competition level, at the national level, than anybody else in the history of the competition. He's from down in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. We've been out to his farm several times. Gary Porter is from northern Iowa, right on the Iowa-Missouri border. He's won both in corn competition as well as grain sorghum competition. Bill Darlington's from over here in Iowa. Ray Rawson's from in Falwell, Michigan. Ray is known as the father of zone tillage. He's got 18 different patents on farm tillage equipment. But he's got a really interesting story all by himself, and we've got some really good videos of him talking about deep tillage on our YouTube channel, which I'll talk about later. Jay Myers is a state winner multiple times in North Dakota. Mike Pekarsky actually holds a record for North Dakota. He's passed away very suddenly of an aneurysm not very long ago. Dave Hula has won the world record corn yield competition several times, and he has the current world record, and Charles Hinkebine actually has the current world record for dryland soybeans, 109 bushel per acre. So what I ask is people, what do these people all have in common? Well, they all use some of our products, but the other thing is they're not satisfied. They have what I call the gift of dissatisfaction. I tell my wife that's what I have. I have the gift of dissatisfaction. I'm never satisfied. You know, these guys are all people that have won multi-year competition at both state and national level, and national corn yield competition as well as the soybean competition. They're all producers that would never be satisfied with 240 bushel corn or 70 bushel beans, and they regularly use our products to increase their yields, including what we're mainly going to talk about tonight, foliar applications. Foliar is really a key. It's not the first thing you do. There's a lot of things you need to do to build a foundation for your crops before foliar applications really become something that's going to pay in a big way. So one of the things that this magazine, I'm sure a lot of you get, The Progressive Farmer, great publication. This actual publication came out, I think this was 2013. Dave Hula at that time had set a new world record at 454. He's now like 532 or something. But as I started flipping through the magazine, because Dave's been at some of our meetings and done some presentations for us, and many years ago down in Falls City at our research farm down there, as I started flipping through, I was surprised at how many of the guys I knew in that magazine. So unlike most of the magazines at my house that get stacked up on the table until they kind of fall off on the floor, my wife throws them in the trash, this one I thought, you know, I'm going to read every single article, and I'm going to look for this, try to answer this question. What do these people all do in common? Every single one of them does all 7 of these things. And so I basically put this together. I should put it together as a little worksheet, but they all do a complete soil test on every field every year that's in competition. They may not do it on every single field on their farm, because some of them farm pretty big. Kip Cullers has 23,000 acres at Purdy, Missouri, so he probably doesn't do every acre every year. But they do complete soil tests. If they're a competition field, they're going to be doing complete soil tests. They need to know not just NPK or NPK and organic matter. They need the full test so they can figure out what are the limiting factors. Because when you break a yield record for yourself, then you got to figure out, okay, what's the next limiting factor? Second thing, they all use seed treatments for enhanced germination. I'm not talking about insecticides, fungicides, those kind of products. I'm talking about things like our Amplify. Most of them in the magazine, this particular magazine, we're using our Amplify seed treatment. They all use in-row pop-up starter fertilizers, placing fertilizer with the seed at the time of planting. And especially with micronutrients, that's really critical. They all do routine tissue testing because, number 5, they all do routine foliar feeding. At minimum once, most of them, I would say on average, probably most of them do 3 times. And I'll talk to you about the formulas that we use at different times and when we do that. And then they all do late season nitrogen applications. And a key to that is to understand that the genetics in the past have required about 25% of the nitrogen needs of the plant be met after brown silk, at the time that the grain's filling on corn. Now it's more like 40%. So we have a lot more late nitrogen needs, and so especially if you have a wet year that's kind of like this one starting out, if you can somehow get additional nitrogen on late in the season, these guys all do some type of late season nitrogen application. Everything from, I know Jerry Cox will actually sometimes, because of weather, fly on dry urea. I mean, they're going to do something to get that late nitrogen. And then number 7, these people are always learning. And I always tell people the best example I can remember of that is Ben and I were up together at the ProAg 2. Conklin has 2 programs. I'll mention them briefly. ProAg 1's a 2-day crop production intensive. I'm sure a lot of you guys have already been there. Once you've gone through that, you can go to the ProAg 2, which ProAg 2 is a soil science intensive. It's 2 days up in Omaha. They begin with a tour of Midwest labs so you can see what your soil goes through when it comes into a lab and how they get your numbers. But I was up at this ProAg 2 up in Omaha, and I was sitting kind of in the back of the room, kind of monitoring things. My son Jordan was sitting in front of me in the next row, and across the aisle from Jordan was sitting Jerry Cox. And I know it wasn't Jerry's first time there, but sitting next to Jerry Cox was Kip Cullers. And next to Kip Cullers was his wife Michelle. In front of Michelle was sitting a guy named Anthony Del Rocco, an NCGA National Yield winner from New York State, who'd flown in to that program in Omaha, and it wasn't his first time there either. But these are guys that are at the top of the game. You know, what most of us say is, what do they have left to learn? And they're there. The thing that was interesting is Ben was sitting next to a guy the next year, and Ben turns around to him, and if you know Ben, you can imagine him saying this. He says, "You look familiar. You've been here before." Well, the guy, Mike Heimbach was his name, and Mike was a dairyman. I think he had about 300 dairy cows back in Pennsylvania. And he says, yeah, he says, I've been here before. He says, in fact, this is my 3rd year in a row that I've come to ProAg 1. Now, here's a dairy farmer from Pennsylvania that flies to Omaha, Nebraska every year to take in the ProAg 2, actually. And Ben says, well, so why do you do that? He says, well, every year, and he gives the numbers. In fact, there's a little video interview that Ben did with him on our YouTube channel. But he talked about how much his cost of production had dropped every year for the last 3 years, and how much simultaneously his yields had gone up every year for the last 3 years. He says, I can't afford not to come. So these people are always learning. They're not satisfied. They're going to continue to learn because they recognize the fact that, hey, if I can get to 270 farm average, maybe I can get to 280. If I can get to 280, I bet I can get to 300. And it's interesting how many guys we have now that are getting farm average yields of 300 bushel and even more. So foliar feeding is really a key to maximum yields, and there's several keys to it, and you might want to take some of these notes. The keys to foliar feeding are, number 1, applying foliar nutrients at the right stage. There's certain times you do not want to foliar feed. You could really mess things up. If right at pollination, you don't want to be in the field applying foliar applications when that corn is germinating, or is pollinating rather. And so there's right stages, very important stages, when you want to be able to be out there with the right product, number 2, and that's important. You got to have the right products. You want a product that's neutral pH, low in salt index. You don't want to hurt the exterior leaf surface. You want to put on a product that allows the leaf to absorb those nutrients. Number 3, you want to do it under the right weather conditions, and we all know how challenging that can be for everything from working the soil to planting to harvesting, you name it. But it's really critical here because you have to have the plant healthy enough to be able to take in the nutrients and do what you want it to do with it. And then you got to use the right equipment. Pressure is important, nozzle size, all those kind of things. But it can frequently be done, in spite of all these specific things you need to watch, it can be done frequently in conjunction. You can co-apply with, say, herbicides, fungicides, plant growth regulators. You don't necessarily have to take a totally strict additional trip over the field in order to make that fertility program work, okay? And so we're going to talk about the products because the products are really key. It's not just NPK, it's not just nitrogen, it's kind of a combination. I've got over here, I know I've got in a box some of these, and if you'd like to get one tonight, I order them and try to have them available because it seems like when it's this time of the year, crop's coming up, and the guy says, oh, you should have the growth and development of corn or the soybean growth and development book. Because what this book does is it allows you to stage your crop. And the staging of the crop is really, really critical so that you know that you're applying that foliar application at the right stage of that crop. I believe these two together are about 40 bucks, something like that. You can get this one as a download from Iowa for about 5 bucks to put on your iPad or something. This one, last I knew, I don't think it's available in a downloadable digital format. But these two books are really, really good. Jerry Cox says he never drives around checking his fields this time of the year without having his books handy so that he can make sure that he knows exactly what stage that corn crop is in, or milo. Second of all, you want to select the right fertilizer materials to help ensure a successful application. There can be a lot of quality differences between NPK fertilizers, and you guys, I don't have to tell you about that. You experience it all the time. Some of the materials are just terrible to work with, and they're not very friendly to the equipment. They're not very friendly to your crop. So we're looking for a product here that we can apply to the plant surface, the leaf surface, that is going to get some, that's going to do us some good, not do us any damage. Okay. One of the statements Dennis Naiman likes to make at ProAg 1 is he says, fertilizer materials should reduce stress, not induce stress. Okay. So that's what we're trying to do there. The metal contents and is a limitation too on a lot of those. A lot of your NPK fertilizers, you really want to be careful of what you're using them with because the heavy metals in some of them, like especially cadmium is one of those that can be harmful. And there's some of them, especially if you're using them with chemicals like Roundup, if you're doing a piggyback application with a fertility product with something like glyphosate, you got to be careful it's not a product that's going to inhibit the effectiveness of that herbicide. And so our materials are all neutral pH, low salt indexing, designed to be easy to blend with anything you're going to put it with. You do not want to use UAN solutions. UAN solutions are going to be too hot. You're going to get some leaf burn. Like those are things like 28%, 32% nitrogen. You want to avoid fertilizers that derive their phosphorus from ammonium phosphate because, again, you can get some burning. You want to avoid fertilizers that derive their potassium from potassium chloride. What's potassium chloride? Well, sodium chloride is a salt, so it's a salt. It's going to have some burn as well. Time of the day is important. Late evening or early morning are probably the best times because the stomata on the leaf surface is open. Temperatures, ideal temperatures are 65 to 85 Fahrenheit. 70 degrees is probably the ideal. Humidity greater than 70% is great. Temperature and humidity, what they're talking about here is the ratio of temperature to humidity. If you could get it in this 140 to 160, that's kind of the sweet spot. And then wind speed, you'd like to have no wind, but you know, this doesn't always happen that way. But less than 5 miles an hour, they say. Rainfall within 24 to 48 hours after foliar application may reduce the application's effectiveness. So I mean, it's a moving target. You guys know that. You know, there's always the theoretical, the ideal, and then there's reality out here. We just kind of, there's what they call the black cloud, you know, clause. You know, it's going to rain. We got to do whatever we're going to do. This is a great slide, and Dennis Damon has allowed me to use it, but it's not what you'll see when you go to ProAg 1. Those of you guys that have been to ProAg 1, you've seen this animated. And it's great because you can fly it in, different things. But basically, here's a real key that this slide shows. And that is, you need to understand something that a lot of people it's a foreign concept to them. And that is that when I apply a foliar fertilizer over the top of a growing crop, the yield response that we look for and expect to get is not a direct result of that fertility, NPK, being sucked in through that leaf and turned into grain. That's not how it works. Especially when I get to the staging, we typically want to put that first application on at the V3 to V5. So how big is that plant? It's not very big, you know. So a lot of my fertilizer is going to drop on the ground. Yeah, that's right. But here's what's happening. We're actually stimulating the plant. The above ground portion of the plant stimulates the plant to say, hey, you know, it's sunny, I got some extra fertilizer. It triggers, think of this as the brain, and this is the heart. It triggers the root system to stimulate the root system to extend more roots, to draw up more nutrients from the soil, and to draw up more moisture. So what we're really doing is we're stimulating the plant much more so, because if you would take, for instance, if you did the math and you figured out how many actual pounds of N, P, and K I'm going to put on with, say, a gallon or 2 or 3 of a foliar fertilizer, and then let's say that I get a 5 or a 10 or a 15 bushel yield bump out of that. Well, you figure out the amount of N, P, and K that it took to make an extra 5 bushel, and then you track back to how much you actually got out of the fertilizer. It's like, that math don't work. And this is the reason why. That's why you've got to have a good soil fertility program to start with to lay the foundation for foliar feeding to even work. So because again, you're stimulating the plant to draw up more nutrients and moisture out of the soil to stimulate that plant to grow. And so that's where, so it enhances the chlorophyll synthesis, so it stimulates the plant. It increases the demand for water, leaf, and the vascular system. You get increased water uptake, increased nutrients as a result, additional root growth, and soil microbial activity is going on down there too. And the net result is we want to produce more sugar. It's when photosynthesis occurs that we create more sugar, and it takes 100 pounds of additional glucose per acre to produce 1 extra bushel. Okay? So what we're looking for is we're looking to stimulate that plant, and at key stages, and that's what we're going to talk about. Here's,
real quick.
Go ahead, yeah.
Does that mean that for us that spoon feed nutrients through pivot, should we be spoon feeding nutrients right before a foliar feed?
Great question. Nitrogen works great through a center pivot, and that's a fertigation, and I always tell people foliar feeding and fertigation are cousins, but they're not the same thing. But fertigation is great, especially for things that are movable nutrients like nitrogen, sulfur, and boron even. You know, because those are things that will move into the soil when you put them on with some water. But for the P and K, this is where we're and the micros. That's where we're really going to need this. And so that would be probably a good advance to do that ahead of this. So make sure that you got plenty of nitrogen. Yep. Good question. Okay, you've got a chart that's really important in front of you, and this is one that you go through some when you go to ProAg 1. A lot of you have seen it before, but this is one that Dennis Damon put together, and it shows this. The left side of the triangle is the vegetative stage of the growing crop. So we start out here V1, V2, V3. V3 is when you have 3 collared leaves. So you could have 5 leaves coming out of that plant, but if there's only 3 that are collared, it's a V3 plant. So between this V3 and V5 is a critical point where we want to be foliar feeding, because that's the point at which the plant is determining its girth. And some of your hybrids where they can flex. You know, you could get a 20-inch, you could get, a 20 row, 22, 24, And if you add an additional couple rows around that cob, you're going to get significant increase in yield. So you want that plant to feel happy right here. So V3 to V5 is where that first one should be done. And that works really perfectly with something like glyphosate or something. If you're going in with some kind of herbicide, a pesticide or application in there, you can piggyback those. And we're only talking about, in fact, I'll show you Jerry Cox's program, but 918.9 or 318.18 are the typical two products we use. When you get out here to V8 to V12, that's the next sweet spot. And that's the spot where you're determining the length of the ear, the number of silks it's going to throw, so how long that ear is going to be. So these are two critical spots, and we would tell you that if you miss those windows, better luck next time. Don't waste your money applying in these spots here, okay? So just, stage better for next time and, try again. Now, we're going to talk later about plant growth regulators and things like Nutrient Compass, and those are products that may be a little different. But this, for fertility, these are the windows, okay? Now, when you get here, this is tasseling. This is basically, we reach the maximum period of vegetative growth, and you got to have a good vegetative foundation if you expect to get good yields of any kind. So you want the plant to be growing here, and you want all this thing to be perfect. But this is where we get to the tasseling, and where we're going to get the pollination. So we want to stay out of the field here, but here's R2 to R4. This is when we've got the brown silks. It's already pollinated. It's already, now you're starting to fill that kernel with nutrient. And what we put on here is a different product. We use here Feast XL, which is a 2600.5 boron. This is it's a non-burning, what they call triazone is the formulation. It's a triazone non-burning form of nitrogen. And you always want to piggyback a little boron with it. So boron's already blended in there. It also has some drifted harden blended into it. So it's a ready-made product. Don't hold me to this, but hopefully we've got a new site that Conklin has purchased now over in Red Oak, Iowa to manufacture our product. And hopefully by June, they say we may be able to get Feast XL out of Red Oak, Iowa, rather than otherwise we'd have to truck it in from Minneapolis, Shakopee area. So that's Stan. Question?
Number 3 there, Dennis. How important is that to get that tissue test taken between your first application and second?
How important is it to take the tissue test?
Yeah,
okay, here's what I would tell you. Right in here, number 1, is where they say take your tissue test. Because what you want to do is you want to be able to see, as I mentioned to you earlier, among those 7 things that all these high yield growers do, they all do routine tissue testing. Because what they're looking for is hidden hunger. I'm afraid that I think I'm speaking accurately when I say that most farmers don't tissue test very often unless they see something they think looks a little funny, and they're trying to figure out what's going on here. And what these guys are doing is they're going out there looking at a crop that's perfect from your viewpoint and mine. Everything looks good. Everything came up. We got good plant stems. We got good population. We got good color. They're doing this because they want to know what's the hidden hunger, what's the limiting factors. Jerry Cox will tell you that every time that he goes to the field, he says no matter how well he's tried to plan his fertility program, he'll always be short of zinc and boron. And so his program, when he tissue tests, will always be showing some zinc and boron. So as he goes in here, he'll put on some Feast, 918.9 or 318.18, I'll show you his exact formula. He'll put on any micros recommended by his foliar, his tissue test rather, and then he'll add some things, the other products we'll be talking about, like Intensify, Nutrient Compass, and Syntos is our sugar product as well. But what Stan's asking is how important is number 3? How important is this second tissue test? I don't know that it's that critical. It certainly isn't critical out here. They say you can take a tissue test out here, but quite frankly, we're at the end of the vegetative stage. So as far as I'm concerned, we're probably too late for micros to do us a lot of good. Our micros really are going to do us the most good here. The further down this track you go, the less effective they're going to be. So I would tell you that this is the critical one. This one's the optional one. And again, these can be pretty close together. I mean, if the sun comes out and we get 3 80-degree days in a row, I mean, we'd see some tremendous growth. that's why the other thing that you got to be cognizant of is it's important to have these products on hand. You got to maintain some inventory, because the bottom line is when plants are growing, I mean, you can blow past, one of these you can go from V5 to V8 in no time. I mean, it's really fast. So, good question, Stan. But this is the critical one. This is the optional. I wouldn't even bother with this one personally. But you get out here, what we're truly trying to do here is just fill that kernel with lots of starch, lots of test weight. I mean, when you look at the yields that some of these guys got last year, it's amazing. But what's even more amazing is when you start talking to them about their test weights. They're not only getting high yields, but they're getting a lot of test weight too with that corn. Okay, so why foliar application corn at that stage? Well, because we're trying to brown silk means we've already got the kernels forming. We're trying to fill those kernels. 10 days to 2 weeks after silking, the silks are dark and they're starting to dry out. We want to get the seed fill that's now commenced. Root system growth has slowed dramatically. Hi guys. With a subsequent reduction in the forage of water and nutrients. So it's not looking for nutrients and stuff as well. Go ahead, you can take that chair. You can get an additional 5% potential in kernel size by doing a foliar application. Test weight and kernel density improve potentially. Aerial applicators love to use this product because, again, 2 to 3 gallons is the most you'd ever use. And so it's low volume. Again, you can mix in fungicides with it. Jerry Cox often does a piggyback of a fungicide application with his Feast XL. And the Feast XL, again, already has the boron blended into it. Again, in most cases, I'd probably put in some Syntos. I think Syntos will always enhance the application. For $1.25 an acre. You can't afford not to. Probably most of our plant growth regulators, you're beyond the window where they're going to do you a lot of good, I think, at this stage. And probably most of your micros are not going to be necessary unless you got something that's really been showing up deficient. Okay, here's some actual yield data from us, and this gives you, it's kind of a chart to explain to you how this works. So if you look at your yield, if you got 200 bushel corn out there, and you applied our foliar program at V3 to V5, you can see a 6 to 12 bushel bump. If you did it again at V8 to V12, you can see another 4 to 8. If you did it at R2, you can see another 10 to 20. So again, that's, I would say, 3 foliar applications that most of our guys do. Jerry Cox, that's what he does. Now Steve Albrecht, who again I mentioned to you, passed away not too long ago, he would go as many as 5 times foliar applications throughout the growing season. This is the most critical, I think. And this is maybe second, but they're all important. Again, this is when you're getting girth determined. This is when you're getting length. This is when you're filling the ear. So those are the critical windows that we're looking for on corn. So, when you talk to guys like Jerry Cox, or when Francis Childs was raising corn, and you talk to guys that were already raising 350 to 400 bushel, you look at, again, they've got their fertility program, and the foundation's already laid. And so they've got a program where they're just looking for, how can I pick up that little bit? Well, it becomes exponential. Francis Childs, I don't know that I have it in this presentation, but Francis Childs, in the 2 years after he started using our program, he went up just under 50 bushel an acre in his world record. He went from like 397 to 442 in a 2-year period of time. He changed several things, but foliar feeding was one of the key things he did. Okay, here's the profit potential with the foliar feeding on corn as well. And so this is just converting those bushels to dollars. Okay, so if you picked up an extra 5 to 10 bushel, here's your cost of 1 to 2 gallons. You're talking about a net additional profit of 52. And I believe, this is based on $6 corn. This is an old slide, but still. Today, it's over $4. I mean, I didn't see that coming, but so again, cut that in half. Still you're looking at an extra $20 an acre. Here, cut that in half, you're still looking at $20-25 an acre. Here, with a late season application, you're looking at some pretty big numbers. So again, test weight is the big thing we look for here, along with additional bushels. Here's Jerry Cox's actual program. He uses feast fertilizers in all of his applications, so he doesn't get any burn. He sprays late in the day. He uses high pressures, at least 75 pounds per square inch pressure. He never sprays if the temperature is above 86 degrees. And again, the idea of 70 degrees Fahrenheit and 70% humidity. Combined temperature and humidity, this plus this, if you can get in this sweet spot, that's where you'd like to be. Okay? And then you want to use a calendar to keep track of your crop staging. So again, you want to know that you're putting it on at that right window there. Here's the products that he actually uses on his application. He puts on our Feast 31818 at 2 gallons per acre. He uses our 10% boron at a half a pint per acre. He uses the 9% zinc at a half a pint. That's typical. And then he uses 10 ounces of our Foliar Excito. Now, I would tell you that Jerry probably now, because this was the formula he used before we introduced Intensify, Centos, and Kip Cullers Nutrient Compass. My guess is, I'd be really surprised if I'm not correct on this, that he's using all 3 of those in addition to these. Okay, so Intensify, Centos, and Nutrient Compass, and I'll go into those more. And then he uses Rainfast at 1 ounce per 100 gallons of spray solution. Don't go any higher than that. And then he adds water to make that into an 8 to 10 gallon per acre mix. Okay. Now at V8, so this is the early stage. V3 to V4 is where he targets. At V8, he goes in also with a ground rig and does this, and he does everything the same except he doesn't put in the foliar excito. So again, my guess would be he's probably putting the Intensify, Centos, and Nutrient Compass all in here, probably not putting any of those in here, would be my guess. I need to check out that with Jerry. Here's a similar chart. I'm not going to walk through it, but this is the similar chart that we have for soybeans, and you've got a copy of it. But here's the sweet spot here, the second foliar. Here's what they call the first foliar back here at V3 to V7. And again, this is at 3rd to 7th trifoliate. And again, use your staging books, but those are full trifoliates that are off that stem. So that would be your first. That's beginning bloom here. So you want to get in there before the bloom for that first application. This would be your second foliar feed, and that's the R3 to R5. So when you start seeing pods starting to come on, that's when you want to hit the second one. We're going to try to fill those pods. Here's your late application out here. And so this, but you know, the thing that's different about soybeans. Soybeans they can pollinate for a long, long time. I mean, they can. In fact, Jerry Cox had some pictures last year. I don't have them in here, but he was up here doing some meetings for us last year. He had a plant. I can't remember how many pods. It was just a huge plant. It had all kinds of pods on it, and it still had blooms coming on. And he asked Kip Cullers. He says, "Will those blooms turn into pods?" And Kip says, "No," but he says it means that soybean's really happy. And so that's what's going on there at that soybean plant. Okay, and here on soybeans, again at that V4 to R1, they're picking up 2 to 4 bushel. Manganese is critical. If you'll check out your soil test, and I know you guys have had you got years and years of data showing how your manganese levels have dropped off. Manganese is really critical. The longer we've been using glyphosate, the more need we've had for manganese in our programs. But especially if you ever spray glyphosate, corn or beans, you should be adding a pint of manganese anytime you do that. But the manganese by itself, they've seen as anywhere from half a bushel to a 10 bushel yield bump with just a pint of manganese. And then at the R3 to R5, he's looking for another 3 to 6 if you're in 40 bushel beans. If you're in 60 bushel beans, it's going to be bigger. And again, what this reflects is not just the fact that you're doing a lot of other things right, but it also reflects that you've got good soil fertility to start with. If you're getting into that 80 bushel, and if you can pick up another 8 and another, say, 3 or 4 and another 10, you can go from 80 to 100. And that's what a lot of guys are trying to figure out is how do I get to 100 bushel soybeans? Profit potential with that, again, just this, and this is based on $10 bushel beans, which obviously we don't have today, but we're hopefully curving closer to that if you can get some in the ground. But yield, they're looking at anywhere from again, if you even knock 20% off of this based on the price, you're looking at $40 and maybe $50 per acre added net after you pay for the products. Okay, here's wheat. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but the wheat price has really been coming up too. And so this would be a year if you got a good stand of wheat and you had some foliar feeding on wheat might pay. And we've got a program here where, you know, and this is all based on their program. But again, early on, you're trying to, this is where we're getting our nutrient uptake and net nitrogen especially. And we want to start with row starters. Our main applications are in here. We want to apply some Guardian if you're putting on nitrogen in the spring. When you get up here to flag leaf, that's when we want to do our foliar with 2600.5 boron. And boot stage here is probably the last time. And again, we're projecting some yield differences of anywhere from 2 to 4, 1 to 2, 2. And again, if you're already producing 80 bushel wheat, you know, you just ramp it up that much more. Here's some data from North Dakota. They get picked up an extra 3 bushel an acre, and what they did is they applied it at 4th to 5th leaf stage, included 12 ounces of wide match chemical, 5 ounces of 2,4-D, and 2 ounces of Propramax. And the difference here is with Feast XL. That's the only thing they did. They used Feast XL as a part of a carrier at 1 gallon per acre. So 1 gallon of Feast XL gave them a 3 bushel yield response. Pretty good response. Alfalfa is the other big crop. You know, if you grow alfalfa, and I've got some guys that grow hundreds of acres of alfalfa, they just swear by our program. I think we've got the premier alfalfa program. And in June here, in late June, we'll have a field day over in Iowa. If you've never been to one, if you grow a lot of alfalfa, if you got guys that do, bring them to that program. We got some of that on videotape that you can watch from previous years, but they're using before 4 inches of regrowth. So after every cutting, they're putting on a foliar application. 2 to 4 gallons of Feast, 2 to 4 quarts of Sidekick. The Sidekick is our product. It's the 002517, so it's high potash, high sulfur. And it takes sulfur to produce the protein content on alfalfa. 8 ounces of foliar Excito. I would definitely be using Intensify as well. Give you an idea, 10 ounces of Excito, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's going to run you about $8 to $10. Intensify, Kip tells me that the key to Intensify, and I'll get to it here in a second, is basically a product that is, we're 2 to 3 times the concentration of other plant growth regulators on the market at a half the price. So you can put on Intensify for $4 an acre at buying it at wholesale. Feast, 10% boron, he's putting that on along with calcium. These are healers that will help that crop come back. And then Rainfast, not to exceed 1 ounce per 100 gallons. Here's Delmer Yoder's program. This is what he uses over in Iowa, and he's had our field day over there for several years. He uses 3 gallons of Feast 918-9, a gallon of Feast Sidekick, a pint of chelated calcium, a pint of complex boron, a pint of chelated manganese, and his factor direct cross, he figures $36 an acre, just for that. And then optionally, 10 ounces of foliar Excito would cost you another $9, and a pint of Feast chelated zinc would cost you another $4. Here's his grass hay program, a little bit different. He uses 2 gallons of Feast XL, a gallon of Feast Sidekick, a gallon of Feast 918-9, a pint of Feast chelated calcium, and a pint of Feast complex boron, total of about $35 an acre. But when you start figuring the kind of yield response we get on alfalfa and the regrowth, it's pretty amazing. And the longevity of that stand. If you're doing a good fertility program on alfalfa, you know, you can, in a lot of cases I've seen guys double the time that they've taken crop off those acres before replanting. Kip started working with us several years ago, and he brought to us a product called Nutrient Compass. Our long name is Kip Cullers Nutrient Compass Foliar Fertilizer. And I tell people, while we call it a foliar fertilizer, it's really more like a plant growth regulator. It's a combination of nutrients, but it really acts to accentuate growth at certain stages. You know, I'd put it this way. I don't have a single customer that I've worked with that has used Nutrient Compass on a few acres to try that doesn't now put it on every acre every year. The yield results have been pretty obvious. What it does, we'll get a larger leaf surface, so you get more photosynthesis going on, and that's where he gives the crop the ability to increase those yields. And again, Kip designed this. He actually developed it down in South America and Brazil, where they've got it on 93,000 farms down there, last count I got from him. And what they do is they put it on in that window when they're applying glyphosate. So they piggyback it with glyphosate. So it's a quart per acre of this product right with the glyphosate. Now these actually are some pictures from South America. And this shows the date. This was back in 2013. So here's with Kip Cullers product. Here's without. And the one thing I tell people is I know it's a lousy picture, but even with a lousy picture, you can see the nodulation and the root system on this plant compared to here. And the enhanced nodulation is one of the big things we see. Here's when I translate this for you. So if your Portuguese isn't real good, down here's the English translation. This is the control. This is Kip Cullers Nutrient Compass 8 days after the second application on corn. And that's the difference. It's same field, same corn. The only difference is 2 applications of Nutrient Compass. Now the 2 applications, I'll show you the windows here. Let's just talk about corn. We've got labels for all these crops. But on corn, you'd want to put on 1 quart per application, not 2. And at first application would be V3 to V5. So again, that's that sweet spot where we're looking at increasing the girth of that ear. Second application a week before tassel. The second one doesn't fit near as well with other kinds of things that you're doing as the first one does. And so based on our results, we did 3 years of extensive testing nationwide, and I'll show you some of the data here. There's no question this one's the most important, the first one. This second one will get you response. It'll way more than pay for itself, but it's not nearly the payback that you'll get off the first one.
Why don't you put it in with your V8? Do you guys know why?
What's that?
Why don't you put it on with your V8 treatment? Is that what?
Well, if you have a V8 treatment, yeah. If you're going to go in a second time, you definitely would want to put it in there. That would be the place to do it. But I'm just saying, it doesn't fit with most chemical applications. Most guys, if they're putting on a fungicide, want to do that after tassel rather than before. So if you're doing anything to go across the field, yeah, I'd put it in definitely, because it will pay back good money. But it's not as high as the payback here. So, and this is so easy to do if you're putting on glyphosate. It just fits that sweet spot. Okay, here's the corn, and this was 2013. This happened to be on Jerry Cox's farm. He got some of the first product to try here in the U.S. He got a 7 bushel per acre improvement with 1 quart applied at V8. $7.50 was what our cost was, and it's roughly about that now if you buy it right. At $3 corn, which is reasonable for our current markets, that was a net return of $13.50 an acre. Here was 2014. Jerry Cox's also got an 8.9 bushel. Now you look at this. This was a V8, so this was kind of at the back end of that window where you'd really like to be. So the next year he got it on earlier, and that probably explains the difference between 7 bushel and 8.9 more than anything. Okay, so the earlier in that window you can get it on, probably the better you are. Again, $19 net return. Here's his soybean results, same 2 years. 2013, he got a 3.1 bushel on soybeans and $17 return. The second year, he got a 3 bushel. So I tell guys overall, and I'll show you I think I've got some composite data here from all of our plots, but Todd Hoffman out here at Juniata, Nebraska, he ran plots in 2014, and on his farm, his control strips were 252 on corn, and where he used a quart of Nutrient Compass, he was at 263, so 11 bushel difference is what he saw. And that was applying at V5 with glyphosate, applying a manganese, applied a boron versus the manganese and boron by themselves. So the difference there is the Nutrient Compass. Dwayne Rogie, who actually, it was really interesting, the way we met Dwayne is he's in Brian's organization. He called us one day out of the blue. Actually, he found us on the internet. And he got a hold of Jordan because he had been to a program up here at the Embassy Suites in Lincoln, and he heard Kip Cullers speak. And Kip was brought in by, I think it was Monsanto, and Kip made some off-the-wall comment at the program. He says, I got a new product called Nutrient Compass. He said, you got to talk to Conklin if you're interested in that. And then he went on. Well, Dwayne, if you know Dwayne's a Harvard-trained financial guy. He's sitting in the back of the room doing a search on his iPad, found Jordan's website, got a hold of Jordan the next day. He says, how do I get a hold of some of this Nutrient Compass? He and his son, they farm about 4,000 acres down here around Auburn. And so the very first year, that's all he wanted. But then when he came to Pro 1 in Minnesota, he ended up doing a bunch of other things. But where he used Nutrient Compass that year in 2014, he had 199 bushel corn. Where he added the 1 quart of Compass, he went to 222. So really a huge increase there, 23 bushel an acre. Now he put it on the second time, and what he got the second time was an extra 4 bushel. Well, 4 bushel at $3 even is a good payback on a $750 investment. So, but the early one, and this is above normal. I tell guys, you'll see some more as I go through the results here. $3 or 3 bushel on soybeans, 7 bushel on corn is a nice conservative expectation. Anything beyond that is, just you're lucky. Sterling, Nebraska, Chris Beavers has been in the national yield competition. His dad was in the national yield competition for many, many years. And Chris had some results here in 2014 where you can tell his accuracy, 61.45 bushel an acre versus 74.73. Now that's with 2 applications, a quart early at the V3 and a quart at R4. So he did it here with his glyphosate, here with his Priaxor. And so you got a really nice yield bump there of 13 bushel. Here is probably the best single. If I was just to show you one set of numbers, this I think is the very best set of numbers we got. It was done by an independent research group out in central Nebraska. They did 32 different hybrids, 3 replications of each hybrid from multiple seed corn companies. It was all irrigated, and this was 2014. The yield improvement ranged from 2 bushel to 27 bushel. That was with just 1 quart at V5, and the average across all hybrids was 12 bushel. And so again, 12 bushel at $3 for a $750 investment. That's basic. Because the beautiful part about this product is the Nutrient Compass is you can add it into what you're already doing. It doesn't take another trip over the field. And I don't know, I've never talked to anybody who's ever had any problems with it mixing with anything. Here's one that, again, we don't, as I go through the math here, you'll know why. We don't grow near as much wheat as we used to. Tom Liebig, one of Stan's old classmates from Juanita, Nebraska, attended our Pro Ag in 2016 in Kearney, and he wanted to put on some Nutrient Compass on his wheat, his winter wheat. And so he went home and he applied a quart of Compass with his quilt fungicide and 9.5 ounces per acre later than recommended at flag leaf. Okay, he should have really had it on earlier than that, but that's when he got it on. The control yielded 58 bushel. Where he used the Nutrient Compass, he went 74. When I called him up and he was sharing these numbers with him, I said, so what's wheat worth? I said, how's that pencil out? Well, at the time, wheat was $3.31 a bushel. And I said, you're kidding. He says, oh no, I wish I was. But we penciled it out. Even at $3.31 a bushel, he got a $6 return for every dollar he spent on this product. So needless to say, if you were growing wheat, it would be a good investment. Okay, so Kip Cullers, his Nutrient Compass, we have it available now. For 3 years, we could only get so much, and you had to provide yield data to even get your price down to what we're talking about here. Now we've got it available, and it really comes in 2 sizes: 5s, twin packs, and totes. That's the only way that we have it. Syntos came out just a year ago in 2018, and it is virtually all of the NCGL champions we've worked with over the years, they've all been using sugars. In fact, I think the first guy that told me about it was Ray Rawson. Ben and I and Rich had Ray Rawson come out and do a bunch of meetings for us back in the, early 90s. And I remember Ray, he and I put on a lot of miles together, and I remember Ray telling me that they got sugar in, liquid sugar, can't even tell you who they bought it from, in semi-load lots, tanker load lots, and put it in their tanks. And they would, their rule of thumb, tell you how much they believed in sugar, as a carbon source for the soil and for the microbes. That's primarily what I believe that its benefit is. It just gives you good, healthy soil. But they were putting on a pound of sugar every time they went across the field, up to a maximum of 10 pounds per acre per year. Now, Corey Oberlander would tell you that you probably wouldn't hurt to put 2 or 3 pounds in furrow, because that's really where you're going to get a concentrated charge for your microbes and stuff. But typically what we recommend is a pint. But this is a product that we package specifically for ag use. I mean, we had Dwayne Rogie would go down to from ADM, and he gets semi-loads of dry bulk sugar to use in their applications. This is a tote. If you figure it out, tote 250 gallons. That'll give you 8 times 250, 2,000 acres at a pint per acre in furrow or foliar application. So we've got lots and lots of guys that buy it. It's only available in totes and 5s. But your cost in 5s, if you're buying direct, is going to be about $1.25. Your cost with any discounts is going to get down to less than $1 for a pint. And so it's a great product to work with. I will tell you this, our first year when we came out, the fulvic acid is a kind of a secret ingredient in this product. Kip Cullers will tell you this is what really makes it work. It also was the greatest challenge in formulation. And so the first year we came out with it, you could get some crystallization like sugar would do in cold weather. I think they've really handled that pretty well. Today they tell you don't carry it over the winter. Get what you're going to need in the spring, use it up, because it is a sugar product. The fulvic acid, one of the things that really helps with the absorption into the plants, is really important, but it's also one of the challenges. So you don't want to leave it sit over the winter. You don't want to leave it get cold. And so that's some of the things that we've learned about that product. The Kip Cullers Intensify product is a product that he brought out just a year ago. We've got it for the first time. And Stan, do we have any up here?
Yeah, there's a little bottle.
We got the little bottles up here someplace? Oh, here it is. Here's what it looks like. I'll pass this around. You can take a look at it and cork it if you want to. But this is enough of that material, and I've got a few of these here. This is enough Intensify for 1 acre. In a container, which is 12.8 ounces, I believe it is, you've got enough for 50 acres. It can be applied in furrow with your in-furrow foliar application. It can be applied foliar as well. Kip tells me a couple of things. Number one, he says this product, originally he had it in a liquid formulation. In fact, down in Brazil, where they developed this product and the Nutrient Compass are one product. But because of some of our regulations, you wouldn't be able to truck it down the road. So our chemist on staff, Amy, figured out a way to make this into a granule like this. And when you drop it into some water, I mean, it'll never hit the bottom. It just dissolves. If you throw it into fertilizer, you might have to pop the clutch. But I mean, it mixes really, really well. Now, the only problem I have heard of is somebody tried to mix this with 1034O and had some problems with it. Shouldn't have any problems with it, but I know that I think Dave Dahl had a guy. You might just visit with him. But 1034O is, there's a lot of variations in those products. I can't explain what would have happened to make that a problem. But anyway, this is a product that we put on one of those containers will do 50 acres. And so that's what we're looking at with the Intensify product. And it's got 2 different ingredients in it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Kip tell you the story. In fact, I'll do that and then I'll come back to this slide. Whoops. I thought I had this thing programmed.
So I know there's a lot of plant growth regulators out there already, and you're probably already using one. A lot of products out there just does one thing. Ours intensifies the growth. The 2 plant growth regulators we have is GA3 and IVA. IVA is for the root development, GA3 is for the above ground. So what that does is it gets that plant up out of the ground at a lot faster pace, developing more roots. That's the key to the whole deal, is getting those roots down there, as many roots as possible, because that's the factory to the plant. That's what you got to feed that plant with. So the more nutrients you can extract out of the ground, the more that plant's got the ability to yield. You know, with Intensify, you should be able to see the results immediately. You'll know it's working. I try to make everything farmer friendly. The beauty part about this is you just dump it in your fertilizer tank with very low agitation, you're ready to go. This stuff is easy, simple, ready to use. The benefit of this is my 25 plus years researching on my farm. We research every year. So you're getting that advantage. You don't have to go out there and do this yourself. This is a piggyback to all other Conklin products. So if you're using Amplified D or Amplified L, this goes right on top of it. This is an add-on product. Conklin's been in business for 50 years and farmer-owned. I mean, they have a long history in agriculture. If you want to see more of your crops, get them up to a fast start, grow it, make more yield, become a champion, I recommend getting hold of your local Conklin distributor and getting some and trying it on your farm and see if it works for you.
Okay, let me go back to this one. So again, Kip tells me it's 3 times the concentration of other products on the market, but it's half the price. Each container can be dissolved in water, fertilizers and co-applied in foliar or in furrow. Chemicals and insecticides should mix with. Cost per acre retail is 7. Your cost if you're buying wholesale is at 4. And what you should expect, 3 to 5 bushel on beans, 5 to 10 on corn. Moisture is critical. He says the wetter the year, the more dramatic the results are going to be with this product. And so here are Kip's 4 products that he uses on every acre of his farm, he tells me. Wex at 1 quart per acre, pre-plant, pre-emerge. He uses Amplified D or L and, of course, Magnify on soybeans. And then 6% zinc or pint of zinc on every single acre. Anytime he sprays glyphosate on any crop. And then, of course, he calls it a super juice, but nutrient compass is what we call it.
Dennis, you misspoke. I think you meant manganese.
Manganese, I'm sorry. Did I say magnesium? Oh, what did I say?
You said zinc.
Zinc. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, manganese. Mn. Yeah.
I noticed on
George.
the sheet that we've got a bigger window on corn. Did you notice that?
No.
It's saying in furrow and foliar, but at planting, of course, and then foliar V3 to V10.
Yeah, I think that would be the thing. That's what I was saying when the other chart up here. I think your window is much bigger on Intensify than it would be on the specific fertility products. Yeah. So up to V10. So any place in that vegetative stage, if you're going across that field, it's not the kind of product I would probably put through a pivot with a fertigation application. But I think if you're going over the field for any other reason, it would be a good product to put up there. Okay, Guardian is a product that's a nitrogen slow-release material. We used to have it in bagged form. Now we've got it just in the liquid. And it's designed to go into liquid nitrogen solution, impregnated dry urea, or liquid manures. And basically what it does reduces leaching, denitrification, losses of nitrogen. That's where most of your nitrogen is lost. It does nothing to improve the volatilization. So if you're spraying nitrogen up on the ground and you're getting some volatilization, Guardian will not affect that. But here's probably the best single set of data we've got. This is from University of Minnesota, 4 years of testing, where they used Guardian. They got an extra 13 bushel per acre with 125 pounds with versus without, and at 150 pound rate, 17 bushel. But here's the key thing. If you look at these two, compare these two, if you knock 25 pounds of nitrogen out of your program and add a Guardian, you still got a better yield. And probably that would way more than pay for the Guardian, probably twice over. Francis Child said this. He said, if you're currently using anhydrous ammonia, consider investing the same dollars in UAN and Guardian instead. He said, for me, this change yielded an 8 to 10 bushel yield increase. And the new Guardian L is much, much, much easier to work with. Our old original product, we called it Guardian DL, dispersible liquid. It was kind of like snot. It was really thick. And I remember the first time, in fact, Stan, I saved it for a long, long time, and I somehow deleted it, but I had a message from Chad Briggs. The first time Chad he farms about 18,000 acres, and the first time he got 6 totes of the old Guardian DL, he left me a message. And he said, Dennis, we got a problem. He says, pumping this stuff's like trying to pump peanut butter. And it was. It would gravity flow. You could do a T siphon on it, But I mean, if you tried to pump it, you would burn up a pump. This stuff is a dream compared to that, but that's the new Guardian L. You put on a quart and a half of Guardian L per acre with your primary application. Nitrogen is where you want to put it. And it's easier to blend, it's more concentrated, same low cost. Basically, your cost per acre is basically the same. So here's kind of my rule of thumb, and Corey Oberlander has recommended this. He says if you're putting on 0 to 40 pounds of nitrogen in a single application, let's say you're at planting, you're putting on 15 gallons of liquid N. He'd recommend a pint. Go with that. If you're putting on 40 to 80 pounds, a quart, and if you're doing anything over 80 pounds, a quart and a half would be the kind of the rate you want to go to. Here's Todd Hoffman's. I'm going to share with you his program quickly and kind of show you his yield responses. Todd farms 1,200 acres of corn, 800 acres of beans annually. This was in 2015, and I know his yields were better last year, but his whole field averages went from 285 to 301, and on his soybeans they went from 82.8 to 101. He had a 101 acre field, went 301 in 15. That was the first time he'd ever had a field average over 300. Last year his entire farm yielded over 300. But here's soybeans. This was the first time he had a 32 acre field that went 101 on his soybeans. But he's been using like some program since 07. He'll be the first to tell you, as with Jerry Cox, the longer he uses it, the more comfortable he is, the more he knows what to expect, and the better his results. But he uses Amplify, Feast. 2 gallons is all it's calling for in furrow. He's obviously got good fertility to start with. His chelated 6% manganese and his boron, these both go on with his glyphosate, and then his nutrient compass was going on with his glyphosate. So this is before Intensify. $29 an acre is what he was spending, and where his check strips were, he showed a 17 bushel yield improvement using those products. Added profit with $3 corn of $21 an acre. So on 1,200 acres, it was an extra $26,000 to the bottom line. On his soybeans, he was using our Magnify inoculant. He had some pretty good indication. We had a spring field day out there, and he says you could see the difference in emergence with where he had Magnify. Now, when I say in furrow, he's not just treating the seed. Now, a lot of our guys will double inoculate, meaning they inoculate the seed, but they also dribble some in furrow. And that's what he's doing here. He's just dribbling it in furrow with his in furrow application. In his in furrow application, I don't think he's using, I'll look here, he's not using any Feast fertilizer in furrow. But he is using calcium. He is using some manganese with his, this is with his glyphosate. And he's using some foliar excito at a reduced rate. It's like 5 ounces per acre in furrow. And he's using the Kip Cullers nutrient compass. So these last two are going in the foliar application with glyphosate. The first 3 are going in furrow. So the soil excito, the Feast chelated calcium, and the... Now, I would also, and I know Todd is now, I would also say you should always have a pint of the Syntos in there. The sugar with the calcium, with the Magnify, is going to ensure that you get really good inoculation, or nodulation, I should say. And so that program was costing him $21.34 an acre. He saw an average of an 8 bushel yield response, and at $8 beans, that was a $42 an acre. And in 15, that amounted to $34,000. So over a $60,000 turnaround on his bottom line. I've got a sheet that shows all these. We've got a number of different conference calls that we've done with key growers. One that just talks about Amplify, one that talks about Magnify. Jerry Cox talks about Wex. It's a product, he basically, I don't think he ever goes across the field without some Wex in the tank. Complete and manganese with glyphosate. Sidekick, Corey Oberlander talks about the yield results he's seen with glyphosate. I'm sorry, with Sidekick. Guardian L with Corey Oberlander, and then DL. And then we've got Excito, Nutrient Compass, and accurate soil testing. So those are all calls. If you don't have one of those sheets, we can get you one before you leave. So what makes our program, people ask me all the time, they say, well, what makes Conklin's AgriVantage system different from every other company that's out there? I say, well, we have some unique products and some proprietary technologies. Nobody else in the country has a product exactly like Wex, Amplify, Nutrient Compass, Intensify, those kind of products. But other companies have some unique products. But we've got some premier industry-leading training programs. If you haven't been to Pro Ag 1, I would encourage you to make it an annual plan to be at a Pro Ag 1. We typically, the last couple, 3 years, we've been having one early out in Kearney each year. Usually get a big crowd out there, and then we have one later in Lincoln. But those are the only two in Nebraska. You can go to Kansas City, you can go to other places and get to them, but those are the two closest for those of us here in Nebraska. We also have the Pro Ag 2 that's once a year in Omaha, and then we have the Pro Grower Field Days, which they'll be starting up here in June. But here's number 3, I think is really significant. I don't think I can overstate the importance of this. We have this network that has evolved because of all the work we've done with the NCJ Yield Champions. And I think that a classic example, and most of these guys are corn, soybeans, wheat, and alfalfa growers, and these guys will share with anybody. We've had Jerry Cox. Jerry and I sat down one day, and I think we figured out we'd probably done over 100 meetings together. Most of them in Nebraska, but all the way up into Wisconsin, Michigan, every place else. And I was out at Stan's son, Preston, owns the sale barn in Imperial. So we try to get out there once a month, and we've done some meetings there at the sale barn. Some of you guys have been out there with us. And we had Corey Oberlander coming out, agronomist from North Dakota. And he was coming in, and just before our program started, one of our district managers, Bob Waldemuth from McCook, walked up to me. And he said, Dennis, he says, I just got a text message from a guy in Alabama. It was somebody that, if you guys, any of you know Paul Shaffert Manufacturing, has been using some of our products on his farm for years and years. His dad, in fact, Ivan, was using products for many, many years. And so Paul, because he owns Shaffert Manufacturing, they make the rebounders and all that kind of stuff, he gets a lot of calls from people all over the country. Well, this guy had called, and he wanted to know what he should be putting in furrow. And so he called Bob, because Bob's his district manager. And so Bob comes to me and he says, what should this guy be using on his rice? And I thought, boy, he's talking to the wrong guy. But I knew a couple guys that I thought would know. So before we got started the meeting, I texted these two guys. And the first one that got back to me was 15 minutes later, and it happened to be Kip Cullers. And he happened to be in Brazil at the time. But he responded, he told me exactly what the guy should be using. But we've got this network of people that are so generous. I mean, we try not to abuse them, we really do, but they are so generous with coming out and doing meetings for us. We've got a lot of videos and interviews and information we've learned from them. So here's the one thing I'd tell you to write down. Write down www.300bushelcorn.info. What this is this is a YouTube channel that we've put together. It's kind of a dead end. It's not going to take you anyplace else. It's not going to get you on some mailing list that you can never get off of, even if you die. You know, it's one of those deals where it's just a YouTube channel, and we've got, I think, 60 or 70 interviews. Now, most of them are fairly short. Most of them are like that Intensify video. If that went a little fast for you, it was less than 2 minutes long. You know, there's some things on there that are, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. There's a couple of them that are longer. In fact, I've got an older version of this program that I think I have up there. We ought to replace it with this one, Ben, a little more up to date with some of these other products. But anyway, that's something you can go to, and you can get some good education, and you'll have a bunch of it from other guys that are NCG Yield winners talking about their use of our products and some of the do's and don'ts. And you'll pick up some really great tips. We have another website. And this one's called yieldchampions.com. It's different in that if you go on, it'll ask you to register, and then you'll start getting emails. It's what our guys use, just basically. But you can go on there, and if you just go to events, anytime we have meetings, whether it's like this or whether it's a field day or whatever, you can look at the events and you can keep up to date on our calendar. We have we have an app called Nextcloud. And as distributors and managers with Conklin, you can keep up to date with any new stuff that's coming out if you get on Nextcloud. So visit with Ben about how to do that. But it basically is information that we can put out to you as new stuff comes out. I want to just finish by telling you this. This business was really made for a farmer. So if you're a grower and you want the opportunity, in fact, just to tell you briefly how I got started in the business 36 years ago, Ben Welch had a booth at the Triumph Ag Show in Omaha, Nebraska. And one of the guys that came by his booth was a neighbor of ours by the name of Ted Curry, who farmed 4,000 acres. Back in the day, he was the biggest farmer in our area by far. But his hobby was going to the tractor pulls. And every Friday and Saturday night, he'd be flying by with his flatbed trailer while I was doing chores, and he'd have his John Deere tractor going to another tractor pull. Well, he started hearing about Conklin lubricants. That was our original line of products. And if you aren't using our lubricants, get a hold of some and start using them. Ben, you've got a 1994 Suburban sitting out here someplace. How many miles on it?
It's right out back with it. I just got it rust cut out. Looks brand new. Right, Dave?
It does.
It does, looks like a brand new.
And its original engine, 965,000.
965,000 miles. Our lubricants are amazing. Anyway, Ted Curry stopped by Ben's booth because he'd heard about Conklin lubricants around at the tractor pulls. So Ben, being a good salesman, took his money, took his order, delivered the product down to him, and he had to drive right past my dad's place. And he had Norm Michael with him, and they got to talk, and they said, you know, a seed corn dealer in a rural area would be a good distributor. Some of you guys might be seed corn dealers. And so they decided the next seed corn dealer sign they saw, they were going to pull in. And that was my dad's place. And so on a cold call, they pulled on. My dad had a 4010 John Deere tractor with dual wheels on it. We live on the road just straight south of Exeter, Gerald, and so it's just half mile south of the Ohio Cemetery. And so my dad had this 4010 John Deere tractor trying to take the duals off of it, couldn't get the cheater bar to do the trick, and so Ben shows up, and Ben pulls out a can of rust bomb, or penetrating oil, demonstrated to my dad. My dad was a customer from then on. And that's how we heard about the Conklin products and started using them. But what was cool is that Ben approached my dad and I, and we said, hey, would you guys like to buy wholesale? Well, we thought it was a trick question. You know, as farmers, you know, we always buy it retail and we sell it wholesale, right? You know, here was a guy said, you want to buy wholesale? And we thought, yeah. And so we got set up as distributors mainly to buy for our own use. But then Ben said, you know, he says, would you like to do a meeting and invite in a few farmers from around this area? And I was at the time, I was a senior in college, actually just starting into graduate school here at the university. And I said, well, yeah. I said, what do I do? And so Ben told me, I went to my Conklin business seminar, got home, I hand-delivered 72 invitations one day to a group of farmers just in our area. And I said, hey, we'd like you to come in, have a meal on us. And Ben did this presentation talking about the key products. The only ag product we had back at that time was Wex. Well, the next 2 days, all I did was go around, stumble around, and see these guys less. And I said, what did you see that you'd like to try? That was my whole sales pitch. And we didn't have near the product line we do today, but I netted $1,200 the next 2 days. And so anyway, when Ben later on said, well, you ought to talk to some of those guys that are using your products that were interested in using the products. For instance, my cousin Alan farmed. And he said, you ought to ask him if he'd like to buy wholesale. I thought, well, why would I want to do that? Because I was selling to him at retail. And he said, well, as a manager with Conklin, you can earn a commission residual. So he could buy at the same price you're buying, but Conklin will pay you a small commission, 5%. And I thought, well, 5% is not as big as 30 or 50% like I was getting. He says, yeah, but he says, over time, he'll use a lot more product. And it totally didn't make sense to me. I'd gone to college way too long, you know. but I did exactly what Ben told me to do. And today, I've spent the last 45 years, and you know, we've put our kids all through college, private schools, weddings, everything else. It's all paid for thanks to Conklin. And so I guess what I would tell you is take a look at the business. I tell guys, if you're a farmer, and if you just have a couple of neighbors that are using the products and you're a sales manager, you're getting a 5% rebate on everything you and those guys use, which I just tell guys, it'll pay for the freight, if nothing else. But it's just an added discount. Along with our early order discounts, you can a lot of times get 10, 15, sometimes as high as 20% off of wholesale pricing if you buy early. And that's what we're here for as your field managers. We're here to help you figure out how to buy the very, very best price you can. Use the products, you know, in the right way, and make sure that the products are doing you the kind of good that we know that they can in terms of increasing yields and increasing your profits on the farm. So with that, thanks for coming out tonight, and I'll take some questions if you got